Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Journaling Through Life Home Edition. Today's special guest is George. He is a certified financial planner, and he is based in Quebec. Welcome, George.
Thank you, Christine. A pleasure to be here.
How are things in Quebec? Are you guys healthy? Everything's good?
Oh gosh, yeah. No, every one is edgy, like in most provinces. In Quebec, everyone is, like most, are just following the news. And Quebec, unfortunately, has been impacted with COVID on the number front a bit higher than other provinces. But for the most part, our premier, Jean Legault, essentially he's optimistic about, coming out from this. So, but overall, it's a new world, and we just need to adapt. So everyone's being optimistic there.
Oh, that's great. And we have to be optimistic, right? We have to think of what is going to be the next steps. And especially because you are in finances, if you wanted to tell us a little bit about what you do and how you help people, for those next steps.
Yeah. Essentially, I'm a certified financial planner, and I manage, for the most part, my clients are, friends and family members. And I really apply a discipline that, we learned from, the certification process of being a financial planner. So I really go from the different steps that are involved. But at the overall output of this process is to have a good understanding of someone's financial situation today, but not only today, but also projected in the future, sort of like a roadmap. So with that roadmap, we're able to navigate depending on someone's situation. So whether the person's single, whether they're living with someone, whether they're married, or someone who's about to retire 5-10 years from now, or someone who's in retirement, everyone has a different map. And that map allows to be a lot more tailored in terms of the conversations, in terms of how do we position, how do we navigate around the ups and downs of the markets. That's where I focus for the most part, and how I help my clients, my friends and family in really being there every step of the way, and making sure that we exceed their goals. That's very important. So it's a financial planning discipline that I use to service my clients.
I love that. And especially in this time with the COVID-19, our roadmap sort of took a detour here and there. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's lots of anxieties. I mean, especially for me, I do actually watch the stock market. I see what they're doing. And in the beginning of this, my mom called me and she's like, what's going on? She's like, this is serious. If the stock market is plummeting, right? So I think as much as we can plan, understanding that it is, a wholeness thing, it's not a once-off, whatever advice works for this person doesn't work for that person necessarily. It's a very personal plan as well, even though we are all in this same situation outside when it comes to COVID. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, the human aspect of money and personal, especially when you're looking at the news, especially when you're looking at the markets, they're not very. I mean, it's a big, roller coaster ride at this point. But you kind of, take care of what you can control. And first and foremost is, making sure that you take that control a little bit further, and the planning process is to be able to, let's just say, try to mitigate risk. And what I mean about that, risk comes in different shapes and sizes. But when it comes to the markets, I typically try to manage risk in, let's just keep it simple, 3 buckets. The first bucket is, I call that a bucket from 0 to 5 years. So what could happen in 0 to 5 years? So in this case, we're actually in bucket number one. And most of the positioning I've done in bucket number one is making sure that people have certain things that are in place to weather, I would call it a storm. It could be a loss of job, or it could even be, financial markets. Now, what goes into bucket number one allows to kind of sleep better at night, knowing that whatever the market is doing, that basically falls into bucket 2 and 3. And as long as you're not planning on taking money out of bucket 2 or 3, we try to manage that risk factor, then the market could be going up and down. And in fact, that roller coaster ride could be beneficial to many people as long as they stay the course and they stick to the same investment plan and be disciplined. I think for the most part, discipline in anything one does really sees you, you take advantage of that compounded effect. It could be really anything if you think about it, but it especially holds true during times of market volatility. Compounding effect actually is higher in the long run if one was able to continue to invest during that downturn that we had. So most of my clients that I've been chatting with and telling them, first of all, I made sure to see how's your job, what's the situation there. Do we need to tap into the emergency fund? How's the cash flow coming in? And if we had checked the check marks as much as we could, well, we got them taking advantage and say, you should be happy about this time, right? Not happy that, people are losing money at it, but happy about taking advantage of getting in during opportune times. And there will be unfortunately, there'll be many uncertainties in one's lifetime. We're going through one right now. We haven't seen something like this in a long time. But, you could only control what you have. So I take it very simply, 3-bucket approach.
I like that. I like that. My 3 buckets. I'm gonna think of that. And you made such a valid point to say that, it is a disciplined approach.
Mm-hmm.
So as much as money, we sometimes think is just something for when we're older, say if we're a young professional, we'll figure it out later, or when we go to school, or, when we start a family, eventually, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also a mindset. Money is as much a mindset as it is the physical thing that you can buy with it, or what your plan is, right?
Absolutely.
And for you as well, right? You said like it's a wellness factor as well. Understanding that even if things don't go exactly how everybody expected, if you have a plan, it makes you sleep at night, and that's important for your overall or wellness, right?
Absolutely. Everyone has that, for the most part, that, concern, right? Like, will I be able to, pay for certain things? Will I have enough money here? Will I lose my job? What will happen with the finances? So, it's a very, financial wellness is real. I find that, during these times with what everyone is experiencing, it's not only personal, but you're going to be hearing, your neighbor or your friend or your family member go through some financial times. So financial wellness, the stress level is real. It is definitely real. And, we're coming at a time where we're in a different we had the industrial revolution. Now we're in the informational revolution. So what we're seeing right now are companies adjusting overall on how they foresee themselves doing business. Technology is taking the realm. So we're seeing a lot of people, in their 50s taking early retirements, not by choice. It's because there's a lot of restructuring going on. So you could say, oh, I'm going to be planning to retire a certain day. So it's you only trying to take the steps earlier is really to anyone's advantage. So for young professionals, and they're in their 30s or in their 40s, It's never too late to start, but starting earlier, you do get that time value that you have working for you.
Absolutely. It's almost like your three buckets, right?
Hmm.
It's like think
Yeah,
of where you're at even in your own life and
yeah.
what you can do and how you can adjust for that. And stress is
Mm,
so much. And I think sometimes, if we hold on and we hold on and we can't really move, it doesn't help us. But if you're thinking, okay, this is the money that I have, this is what will help me in the long run, this is what I need, like you said, those
yeah,
check boxes. Now, coming back to the three, it seems like that's our magical number.
yeah,
if we can maybe make a persona, say a
yeah.
young adult
Hmm.
that just graduated, I mean, this is a weird time to graduate right now,
Yeah.
versus a family with small kids, versus a person that was going to retire, maybe voluntary or
Hmm.
involuntarily,
Yeah.
however that works. Could you give us some general advice
Hmm.
for this specific circumstances for those three personas?
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, during this time, depending if you're, a young professional who just graduated, is just about to go into the workforce. Obviously, right now, it's going to be tough to find work. First of all, so I mean, I think if you take a mindset of being a life learner and really just take this time to better yourself and ask yourself a few questions like do what you plan on doing. Do you see it being around? I know it sounds a bit weird to say that, but sectors and industries are really changing. We're in that space right now where people are talking about how artificial intelligence might play a big role. And so, I mean, again, I think we're at a time where if you rewind it back in the day where one income was sufficient, nowadays you need multiple sources of income. So I mean, and the whole internet space really allows one to explore different avenues. So again, it's for anyone who's young, who's getting in, is constantly, just commit to be a life learner and constantly, perfect your craft, learn new things, learn from others, and really add to that bank of knowledge. In terms of if you're fortunate enough to not come out with any debt from either schooling, etc., and you have the opportunity to start early, I would suggest strongly to start early. That discipline of taking anywhere between 10 to 20%, if possible, of whatever cash that you make into to the side. And what that side is will depend on what your situation is, but overall is to start that discipline early. Okay, most people tend to make their first money from their job and just spend it, but if you're just like that. But if you're able to start that discipline early, then you're gonna be ahead of many people in the same age. Fast forward to anyone who's in that gray zone, that 5 to 10 year retirement period, and let's just say if they're empty nesters, they had their kids, everyone's moved out. I would relook at their finances from their liability side. So you got your assets, what you own, and the liability of what you owe. And ask yourself a simple question is, when will this liability disappear? And the hope it is before retirement. If it's not, then you got to reevaluate a game plan for that. And of course, the ultimate goal for anyone is to be debt free when you start retirement. If you could make that happen, you're in a good place. So that would be, a good revision. And also to get a financial plan, and I think a financial plan is done at any age. People think that you need a financial plan because when I have money. No, you don't. I think if you understand your financial plan earlier enough, you're able to then think and make decisions based on your financial. And your financial plan doesn't tell you what to do. You decide what you want to do. But if you could see that certain decisions that you make in the long run will negatively impact you, well, then the whole financial well-being of your situation may be affected by that. And anyone during retirement is, it's important to, again, be a little bit more in tune with their expenses, especially during this time, to understand their numbers. And that goes for anyone, from the young, as more complexities, grow, everyone should understand, their cash flow. Cash flow is a word that is not used often, and I try to use it often enough to not be scared of that word, cash flow. Cash flow really allows you to make smart decisions, to understand how much of that cash flow is kept. And what I mean about that, everyone needs to pay taxes, and not every cash flow is taxed a certain way. So that even happens during your working years. Either you're a self-employed business owner or employee. Every person's cash in is taxed a certain way, and even during retirement, same thing. So then it's a matter of understanding your cash flow, and through financial planning, or I would say through a financial plan, cash flow is a real good foundation to understand your situation. So if there's any tip across the board for multiple generation, is understand your cash flow, and understand not only it now, what it would look like down the road as well, to make sure that your cash flow is sustainable.
Right, right. That was so insightful. Thank you. And I'm as you were speaking, I was thinking this whole consumerist mindset that we've had, where now with the COVID, it seems like people are returning back to the basics. They're seeing, what do I really, really need? Is it that instant gratification, or can I delay it a little bit and have a good life? It's not necessarily a life, with the biggest mansion and the biggest boats.
Yeah.
I think we're, as a society, moving away from that idea, but just having that as an education part, you still need the plan, you still need that financial, aspect. So while we're in this situation, could you touch on families, maybe with children, that type of thing? How can they actually, just in general,
Right.
think of their cash flow, think of how they can, navigate this a little bit better?
To my surprise, most people have an idea of where their money's going, and I think that needs to be improved. And whether you're, for families in particular, because there's a growing need for expenses right now, it's more control, and I think this opportunity allows for many to easier understand their numbers, their expenses. Okay, and I think mainly why, because there's less transactions unfolding. The kids are at home, they're spending less on activities, outings, etc. So that moving number is harder. It's not as easy when it's constantly going in and out, because most people, if their cash is coming in from business and for work, and from month to month, everything's fine, they think everything's fine. But it's usually times like these that in the uncertainty of, whether you still have a job as we speak. And most people think, now they realize that if, $2,000 from the government, then they start thinking, oh, that's not a lot of money compared to what I was making before. Thankfully, either the spouse is still working, but if both are not working, then you got $4,000. So, if there's anything one should look at, is try to separate your situation in two: your fixed expenses and your variable. Right? For the most part, people are in fixed mode right now. There's variable, of course, but a lot less. Yeah, it's more narrower. It will open up as people sort of get back to it. But the fixed is such a crucial number. It covers so many things like lifestyle. That's the bare essentials, you know, roof on top, you know, keeping the lights on, food on the table. People need to know what that is, what that number is. It needs to be written down. People need to recognize that number, because that number does many things. One, it establishes your lifestyle, the very bare minimum lifestyle. That number could be used as, you know, your retirement goal. Most people want to preserve their lifestyle. They don't want to regress. They want to keep their situation going. Of course, improve it if they could, and et cetera, but at least the bare minimum. So by knowing that number, it does many things like reviewing your insurance needs, right? Reviewing that if, you know, husband, you know, happens, your premature dies, then what do we have in place? Do we have enough to meet this life or continue it? So there's a lot of complexities to just knowing that fixed expense. And then the variable will allow you to obviously enjoy, right? Everyone wants to enjoy while they still can, vacationing, etc. So but there's always room. And I think the strategy that most people you know, underestimate is the pay yourself first strategy. So most people will tend to spend what they have, hopefully not more than what they have, you know, through credit cards, etc. But for the most part, if you're able to automate, I think automation is a very big component to things, similar to what employees have through their benefits, employer benefits, where their employer takes it from their paycheck, you know, the you know, the retirement benefit packages, depending on, you know, what company you work for, etc. That's done, that's automated. But people think that that's enough for retirement. It's a lot less. For the most part, it's about between 5 to 10% of your overall, but it may not be what people think that will be. So I think overall, you know, everyone needs to treat themselves, their family, like a business. Any business owner, if they want to succeed in business and not run out of business, you need to know their numbers. So if people, you know, I know it kind of sounds weird to say, oh, well, you know, I'm not a business. Technically, you're a walking business. You know, like you are a big number. People don't realize that they are a big number. That ability to earn an income is a big number, because if you're young, it's a huge number. If you're, you know, 5 years from retirement, it's still a big number, depending on what you do, but it's still a large number. You need to protect that number. You need to know what that number is and know that. So, and I think that's for really applies from any generation, is to understand how you could keep up with your lifestyle and sustainable, you know, year over year. Yeah.
I just love that. That is so empowering. I think every kid that goes to school now, when school comes back, needs to watch this video. To be like, you know what, take
Yeah.
control, be
Yeah.
empowered, realize all of this potential is inside you. Like you said in the beginning, you know, take control of something as well, to look at the industries that are up and coming, you know, or their skill sets that you can improve if you are, you know, in transition. But I love that idea if you are a walking business, and it just puts so much, like I said, strength and power in your own abilities to do things, where I think, you know, in times of stress, people feel like everything is out of control. And the only thing we can really control is how we respond to things.
Mm-hmm.
Reaction is out of control, but we can respond in responsible ways. And this financial one is amazing. Thank you. I'm going to hashtag it. Now, I always love that you said, you know, you have to write down your number. You know, my business is a writing business. It's journal things down.
Yeah.
Now, have you had clients that say, you know, I have emotional responses to buying. This is why I'm buying. Do a lot of people, are they aware of their emotional attachment to how they're spending their money?
That's, are they aware? I think companies have done a great job with marketing. Unfortunately, marketing is literally even at a level that we haven't seen, 10, 15 years ago, now that most people are on their computers. And Amazon is, literally, I think it's 2 clicks and you just ordered something. So people know after the fact that they may have shouldn't have done that. But for the most part, from like clients and they're relatively disciplined. They do splurge. I think you could do both, and I think it's important to do a little bit of both. You can't, just hold back. You want to enjoy yourself, but feel like you're actually taking care of not only yourself now, but you're also taking care of your future you. You have to kind of, chip away at both people. When I mean your future you is, down the road you. And if you're doing that early or always or consistently, and that's what's key, it's being very disciplined in the consistency. No matter what life throws your way, if you're still able to continue consistent, that means you've done the right steps to be able to do that still, even during these times. People are still putting money aside. I think I saw a very interesting number the other day on how there's a big withdrawal rate going on because people are withdrawing money from their investments. And it's, to me, it's sad to see, number one, not an opportune time to be doing it, but if you have to, then you have no other choice. So a bit of planning, a bit of, not doing what others do. I think, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of people, expressing, yeah, you should be doing this with your investments, this and that. But I find that everyone's unique, everyone's different, and everyone has their own situation. And investing is a big component. Investing is very broad. There's investments, there's real estate, there's businesses, there's many, but at the end, it all comes down to, investing as an umbrella. So I think that, people should, not compare themselves to others and really make the decisions that's good for them, and not because they're, family or relative or friend or someone on the internet said this is good, so just be careful there.
Right. And to that point, I just wrote it down. It's like sometimes we can feel like, the world is judging us very harshly, or we are judging ourselves. I should have done this. I could have done this better. Life threw me so many curveballs. I don't know where to do what. But what you said in the beginning is so important. You can start a financial plan at any point in time.
Yeah.
Just because you didn't, don't be hard on yourself. Be kind to yourself. Take control. Find that empowerment and find somebody like George to help you do this, right?
Yeah.
Another really good point that you made is where your money goes. So if you do splurge, and this is a good segue into, I love local businesses, supporting local business, and it just, I studied a lot of things in my life. I also studied economics. So I have a passion for that too, just to see how the puzzle pieces fit together, right? And now, again, for anybody watching, there's always disclaimers. This is just an educational video for informational purposes, right?
Yeah.
Economically, how can we support the local businesses? Is that a strategy you think that is going to help us get out of this, just in broad terms?
I think I'm speaking in general from different communities. I think that's going to be a big help to local business owners, for anyone who wants to stay afloat. And I think right now everyone is in certain parts in survival mode because of the uncertainty, because we don't know financially how people will be when all this comes unfold. It won't be where we were before. So the people who typically were spending, they may no longer be spending. So I think from a community perspective, locally is extremely important. I know just here from being in Montreal and in Quebec, our premier and our politicians are promoting it. They're really encouraging to buy locally from our farmers, to try to keep the economy internally. In fact, they've even created here in Quebec a similar platform like Amazon, but for local businesses. So they've actually created a online digital platform, and they're encouraging people, hey, yeah, instead of going to Amazon, go to our platform, because these platforms are businesses that are linked, internally, and you'll help support. So it's still in that early stage, but they're going to be releasing it, and it's going to be hopefully a way to keep the economy within Quebec in this particular situation going, and hopefully people will benefit from that.
And that's quite a scalable product. Like
Yes.
once they have it up and running, they should just
Yeah.
do that with every single province, right?
That would be something. Yeah. And get because a lot of these local businesses, they may have not have took advantage on improving their presence through the internet or online presence. So a lot of them are really not at a certain level that they should be. So hopefully a third party could help them transition and get them registered. So all they have to do is they just need a computer, fulfill their orders, because it's coming in through a third platform. So I'm crossing my fingers that a lot of people will want to gravitate towards the buy local. I think it's going to be very important for many businesses, if they want to survive this, is to get the help as much as they can locally if possible.
Absolutely. And I think just from a very global perspective, as much as, like you said previously, we did not want people to lose their lives, and you never want people to be in this much distress, but we
Yeah.
have to reach for those silver linings. Somebody
Yeah.
said that in a previous episode. And I do think that is what we're doing now, right? We're innovating, we're trying to get all
Yeah.
of our creativity so we can also have a choice, right? We can get stuck in the past or in our anxiety, or we can make a plan. We can make a financial plan. When we do
Yeah.
spend money, we spend it in the right places, knowing that our money is going towards building this economy again. I think that is a very powerful way to think about your money as well.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. Spending is what keeps the economy going. And if jobs are still there, that means people will be, will have some disposable income to then inject or spend, within. So I think it's, only time will tell. Hopefully, we don't see too many businesses that unfortunately could not keep up with their expenses and to stay really in business. But encourage definitely to purchase locally as much as possible.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Very insightful. Now, George, if
Hmm.
people want to get a hold of you, I am subscribed to your newsletter. Absolutely informative, amazing,
Thank you.
right on the money. Is that punny? Is that
Yeah. Yeah.
So how can people reach you? What are you
Uh,
doing now? I know you have online services. Tell us about
yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. So the newsletter is really a way to just keep really a high level. I have different interests. It really covers industry sectors, perhaps businesses in general. It's really more educational content. And so if you want or interested in subscribing to my newsletter, it's to simply send me a quick email. I like to keep things very personal, so just send me a quick email. I don't know if we're going to put that somewhere, but it's okay. So it's George at orocwm.com, and say, I'd like to subscribe, and I'll say a quick thank you and hello at the same time, and I'll get you subscribed. In terms of services, it is financial planning for the most part. Now, what goes in, I considered financial planning as a system. So what I do is I have a system and I build a system and I work within a team with different systems to be able to implement. But each system, I would say, in those three buckets will depend. There's no, cookie cutter recipe. I'd like to, I'm a very disciplined person by nature, very conservative, even though I'm engaged in the stock market. I've been in the business for about 15 plus years and have been grateful to be learning constantly and have seen thousands of financial plans that everyone's unique. And that's one thing I want to point out. To just, to be able to see your situation from a different perspective, less from a, here's my account, how has it been doing, what's the rate of return? That is extremely important stuff to know. But I find that there's a bigger picture that needs to be looked. I typically like to say financial planning is like someone who's about to go out and sail a boat. You don't just sail in the open not knowing where you're going. You're not going to go and start looking at certain things like the weather pattern, the wind pattern, because it's a sailboat, a map. You want to kind of navigate between, certain things. So it's very similar. And, I'm constantly in a life learner on, recognizing that 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we'll be in a different situation. So I always try to make sure that whatever tools and systems are really, where we are and where it should be for anyone. So, I mean, if I'm taking care of friends and family, I just want what's best for them. And I think that's important to me. And I find that, if I'm able to help my friends and family, it does come. So the story comes a little bit deeper. I don't know how much more time we have, but I come from a family who immigrated here when I was very young. My father was an engineer, civil engineer. He built bridges and he was a very smart man. But when it comes to finance, he didn't really much. So he entrusted my mother. My mother did a very good job as well in there. But finance to them at that time, it was more real estate. So a lot of real estate, et cetera. So that's how they built sort of their wealth. But real estate is just a component. And I find that if certain things were done differently, it would have been a lot different now. I mean, they're fine, but it could be a lot different. And what I've learned out of all that really comes down to two words: cash flow. So that's the two words. So that's, with all the financial planning, it really comes down to cash flow. How do we improve it? How much can we keep from it? How much stays within it? And I typically don't like planning for one generation. I like to plan for multiple generations if that's important to whoever I'm helping. But if they want to make sure that the next generation is taken care of, et cetera, well, there's different strategies for that. But for the most part, wealth management is really the umbrella I'm in. Financial planning is basically the map that allows to navigate through wealth management in general.
That's great. Thank you so much. And thanks for sharing your story. I have a thing for engineers. I married one. I mean, there you go.
Yeah, I was. I was actually. I was going into engineering halfway through computer engineering here in Montreal. I love numbers, but my passion was helping. So I figured, helping people. Like I was very sociable and helping, and so I discovered a new passion, which is finance, and also mixing, working with people. So that's where over time I realized this is my calling. this is
Well,
what
I
I do.
actually think it works in your favor because as an engineer, you have to be so detail oriented. You have
Yeah,
to think of all these
yeah,
contingencies, you have
that's
to
right.
build things. So now you're
Yeah,
just building instead of computer software, you're building people's
yeah,
plans for their
yeah,
lives so they
exactly.
can take those boats on holidays.
Yeah,
That's what I got out of that one, where it's like your boat on the ocean. I think holidays would be
yeah,
great.
100%.
Oh, excellent. Well, George, thank you so much for your time. And absolutely, I will put all of the details in there. Just as a real quick final note, do you only take customers from Quebec? Is there rules to that? Or can you take anybody from Canada?
Yeah, well, I have different clients in all provinces. So financial planning is regulated in Quebec, and not in the other provinces. So there's no issues in terms of providing financial planning in other provinces. Eventually, I do foresee regulations changing in other provinces where you would need to register yourself within the local. So when that comes, I plan on registering in the different provinces that I'm currently, helping my clients in different provinces like Alberta, BC. They're a little bit spread out. In terms on the tools that I use and the systems that I use, they're licensed across Canada, so that's a non-issue. Fortunately, there's Zoom or video conferencing that really is quite helpful. I sort of been doing this since 2016. I've actually told myself back then and saying, 10 years from now, how will people be doing this? And I started really early doing this. So to me, it's welcome that people are open now to speaking. So I just try to be very digitally focused for simplicity, efficiency, and access. I think is very important, especially during these times.
Absolutely. It's like you saw the future.
Well,
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, stay safe, stay
thank
healthy,
you.
and we will chat again real soon.
It's a pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you, Christine.
Have you signed up for our digital journaling platform yet? There's tons of information, especially in our premium alignment journal, on how finances influence your mental health. Sign up at journalingthrough.life. Keep journaling and keep growing.